episode 237 of the Various and Sundry podcast. I'm your host, Matt Harmon, joined live from the Vault Studio, beautiful campus of Grace College and Theological Seminary, by my good friend, my colleague, my co-host, and the man who is done conferencing for now, John Scott Sloat.
Doc, what's happening?
Well, it's nice to get you in the studio. This is becoming
a rare sighting.
A rarer, more rare,
rarer,
right?
This summer has been busy.
Yeah.
I have been doing lots of travel. So
yeah. That's right.
Many things are happening. Many balls are in the air.
Yeah.
Conversations are taking place.
Yeah. I mean, so last week
Wheels are in motion.
You were at the Charis Fellowship National Conference.
Shindig, yeah.
What's it officially called again?
I think it's Charis Conference. It used to be Access.
Okay.
And now it's Charis Conference.
Okay.
I think.
All right. And that was in Mecca, right?
Yes, if by Mecca you mean Polaris, Ohio.
Yeah, the mothership.
Yeah. Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Right in, where Zach from Ohio is.
The belly of the beast.
He's in the belly. I don't know what that metaphor means in that context, but
I think I recorded the podcast last week from
his office.
From his office, yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yes, and you also I'll save that.
Okay.
Now, lots of conversations, lots of preaching and hobnobbing and connecting with people.
Yep, putting out some fires here and there, talking to a few people.
Okay.
Drinking lots of coffee.
Yeah.
So doing fun things.
Okay. Yeah.
And how is the Harmon home getting ready for a wedding?
Well, we're now, as of today, we're T-minus.
Was it 10 days? 12 days?
12 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's coming.
It is. So we are, we have very minimal. All of our responsibilities are essentially the rehearsal dinner.
Oh, nice. What are you guys doing for the rehearsal dinner?
So we are catering in Shigs and Pit.
Nice.
Barbecue.
That's great. That's good stuff.
Yeah. Brisket and pulled pork. Some mac and cheese. Some
nice.
Potato casserole. We'll throw a salad in there.
Yeah. Where is
beverages?
Is it at? Is it in Huntington?
It's at the venue.
It's at the venue. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll do the rehearsal, and then we'll move to a different part of the venue for the rehearsal dinner.
And what's your role in the ceremony? Or are you just playing father of the groom here?
In the ceremony, I have no role other than being father of the groom.
Okay. Which is like you're in the program for that.
Yeah, I get named.
Yeah. You're important. So not like you have no role.
Yeah. And at the reception I'm praying before the meal.
Okay. So you're the guy that everybody's like, please pray quickly.
Yeah. I've decided to trim it from like a 10 to 12 minute prayer down to like a 8 to 10 minute prayer.
Well, that's probably without the quotes of Jonathan Edwards in there. You know?
Yeah. Throw in some Edwards, Calvin.
In the original French,
Augustine,
of course.
Valley of Vision in there.
Yeah.
A few Psalms. Get it all in there. So, well, if you'd like to reach out to the show and
I'm not sure what you're going to say here.
and give me suggestions on things I should include in my prayer.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Feel free to contact us on Twitter/X at VNSPod. You can email the show, variousandsunderpodcast@gmail.com. We're on Facebook and on YouTube, and we would love for you to leave us a 5-star rating and a review.
What's the food for the wedding proper? Because I don't think I get the beef there for the rehearsal dinner, which is fine.
Yeah.
But, I will take my lumps in that way. But what is the food for the wedding day? Any sense?
I know some things, but I'm also not sure how much I'm supposed to reveal. There are certain elements of the festivities that are shrouded in some measure of secrecy.
Okay, so like off-pod conversation or like no John conversation?
Off-pod.
Off-pod? Okay.
I can confidently tell you the food is going to be amazing.
Okay, great.
amazing.
Okay.
So
Expectations are high.
they should be. They should be. So, all right, let's talk a little sports. Today we're recording on a Monday, so we're in the All-Star break.
We are. I believe Home Run Derby tonight?
Sure.
I think so.
Yeah. It's Alonso, right? Pete Alonso?
Yes, Peter Alonso.
Okay. Now, I can't remember. Did he win last year? He did not win last year.
He did not win last year, but the two
years before that.
And the year before that, he also won. So he won 2 years in a row.
Yeah. Okay. Is he competing?
He is.
Okay.
I think that's the whole reason he made the All-Star team, is because they wanted his swagger in the Home Run Derby. Because he announced he would not compete unless he was an All-Star.
Okay.
And he's a fun guy to watch.
Yeah. So, where do the Mets stand as we hit the All-Star break here?
We're in a wild card position, so we're in the playoffs. If the playoffs began today, we'd be in. We had since May 30th, I think, the best record in baseball, most home runs, second most runs. Okay. We're top 3 in most offensive categories in the last month since May 30th. So
nice,
month and a half. So it's good to be alive.
Okay, yeah. I mean, we'll talk about some other sports going on, but I'm ready for some football to start up.
It's coming.
Yeah.
I got an update on my phone today about fantasy football.
Yeah.
Things coming out. So,
well, you've probably seen at least some buzz for today is the early release for the NCAA 25 EA Sports video game.
Oh, is today?
It's the early release. So if you paid a little bit extra,
you can get it early.
You can get it early.
Interesting.
So there's been a lot of buzz about that. But
just the fact that it's out, or did anything interesting?
Just the fact that it's out. I mean, there's plenty of stuff, people who got early access to it and showing previews and that kind of stuff. But I am ready for some actual American football. Before we know it, we'll be talking about the Buckeyes,
the Jets,
and the Jets. Jets.
Yeah.
We'll see if the Aaron Rodgers tenure can last longer than
3 plays.
3 plays. Yeah.
Well, we've won the offseason again for sure. So
yeah.
I feel like there was one other thing I was going to mention, and the MLB draft happened.
Okay, isn't that like 30 rounds or something like that?
Yes, the first 2 rounds happened Sunday night.
Okay.
So,
and to what level do you follow that?
I read the profiles of the people the Mets draft.
All right.
So,
yeah,
we got a 2-way player.
Really?
Yep. And out of Oklahoma State, and a left-handed pitcher out of Duke.
All right.
So, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Who knows?
We'll see them in 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Probably the biggest sports stories have been you had 2 major soccer tournaments end over the weekend. You had the Euro Cup. Spain beat England.
I saw that.
We had a bit of a small little watch party at our house since we're starting to collect Brits.
Yeah, by the way, I thought I'd mention this. The new Brit did the call to worship on Sunday.
Yeah.
Much more refined accent than old Brit.
And I believe Ben would tell you that Luke has a better accent than him.
Really? What's like the only thing I could think of, did that guy study at Oxford? That was the only thing that popped into my head.
No, I mean Luke is he's 20. And his university is specific to music.
Okay.
Ben actually has a degree from Cambridge.
Really?
Yeah. So in terms of education,
Ben's a little higher up the ladder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. So is Luke's accent connected to where he's from in England?
I mean, he's from Sheffield. But
okay.
I mean, Ben's kind of been around, but I don't know. I'm not sure I have a good explanation as to why his accent is more refined, I guess.
Yeah, all I could think about was My Fair Lady. When the two of them were talking during the service, all I could think about was My Fair Lady. And the accent debates.
So Luke was telling us that was the first time he's ever, in any context, done a call to worship.
Really?
Did a great job.
He did a great job.
Yeah. So anyway, we had a little bit of a watch party.
Yeah.
So several Brits in the home.
More than two?
Well, we didn't have Ben, but we had the Voths.
Oh, Caleb and Clara?
And his parents.
Oh, his parents were in town. Oh, that's wonderful.
His parents go to church. His parents.
What?
Yes, they go to CCC.
I'm in small group with this person. I had no idea.
Yeah. His mother's British. His
Yeah,
dad
I knew
is
this.
American.
Yeah. I had no idea they went to CCC.
They've been going to CCC for like a year.
I literally had no clue.
So anyway, Luke was very he said basically Spain's been the better team throughout the tournament. My untrained eye told me that as well. So England lost, giving up a goal in like the 82nd minute or something.
Oh,
like
so
that.
a little heartbreaking.
A little
fashion.
heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And then did you see any of the news coverage of the Copa America tournament, Argentina against
I noticed how you
Colombia?
framed that. It took place in Miami.
Yes.
I know that.
Yeah.
And I saw like the crowds burst through the gate.
Yes.
Basically.
Primarily Colombians. Without tickets.
Without tickets and like rushed. Did they rush the field? Or
Ru-
into the stands?
Rushed into the stadium to get seats.
Interesting.
They just overwhelmed the security presence. And so the game was delayed an hour and 15 minutes.
Because they had to remove all those people.
Well, I don't know if they got them all. I mean,
it'd be impossible.
mass crowds.
It'd be impossible to
of
move them all.
people without tickets just converging upon and
Interesting.
which Argentina ended up winning. The reason
Of course they did.
The reason I bring this up is there's a lot of concern now because the U.S. hosts the World Cup in 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
And this is sort of like, well, if this is what we're in for here, like the U.S. is not ready for this. Like this is a disaster. The broadcast was poor. The audio was going in and out. Like there were lots of complaints throughout the tournament apparently about the quality of the fields that the teams were playing on. Like this was a PR disaster for American soccer and for leading up to the World Cup in 2 years.
Interesting.
So anyway, and quite frankly, most Americans won't care because the U.S. didn't even make it out of the group stage.
We've got 3 other sports we care more about.
Yeah. In other sports, we had Wimbledon. You had Alcaraz of Spain defeating Djokovic in 4 sets in the men's final. So 2 years in a row, he's beaten Djokovic. So a good day for Spain because he's a Spaniard.
Yeah. Big day, big banner day for Spain.
Yeah.
Huzzah.
So, but man, I'm ready for some American football.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Is Luke ready for American football?
Well, he's going back. He's going back to the UK in a couple of weeks.
He's not even going to see any.
No.
It's like he wasn't even here.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Is he a listener to the pod?
I don't think so, but
Okay, so he's not going to hear this conversation about him.
not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Not that I'm aware of. Though we may have some new listeners.
Who?
Well, so last week, I was invited to Zoom into a online class that Rob Plummer is doing this summer.
Yeah,
Called
yeah,
June
yeah,
and
yeah.
July. It's got like 100+ people.
Oh, yeah.
And so he had me Zoom into the class on Friday and answer questions about Jude since I'd written that biblical theology of 2 Peter and Jude.
Yeah, yeah.
And so he went out of his way to mention the podcast. And
Is Rob Plummer a listener?
I do not know. I think that was just him looking at my
Interesting.
signature and going, oh, hey, he's got 2 podcasts. And he said, tell us a little bit about those podcasts.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
who knows? We might have picked up some listeners.
Hey, yeah.
Welcome aboard.
I mean, we got that one guy in Tennessee who was looking for a breakdown of T4G. You remember that?
Yes.
I'm not sure. Did we keep him?
I don't know. We should have if that's you, reach out to us. Let us know you're still listening. But we need to move on.
Okay.
So we are at week 3 of our series on the Sermon on the Mount. So, again, just because of the restrictions of time, we'll have to do a 40,000-foot flyover. We're doing all of chapter 6.
We're
today.
moving.
Yes. Which, again, just as a reminder, kind of approaching this Sermon on the Mount as Jesus' explanation of what living within the kingdom looks like. And so here in chapter 6, I'm largely kind of following the outline in Don Carson's book on the Sermon on the Mount. Now I'm going to blank on the title. If you just Google or
let me look it up real quick.
Search on Amazon.
If you want to do some introductory work, I can find it.
Yeah. So he breaks chapter 6 down into 2 sections, verses 1 through 18 dealing with religious hypocrisy. So focused on giving and praying and fasting. And then verses 19 through 34 he calls kingdom perspectives, which deal with storing up treasure in heaven and not being anxious. So
I see 2 books by Don Carson on the Sermon on the Mount, which sounds like Don Carson. The Sermon on the Mount and Evangelical Exposition, Matthew 5-7.
Okay, what's the other one?
Jesus' Sermon on the Mount and His Confrontation with the World, a study of Matthew 5-10.
Yeah, that one.
The second one there?
That's the one I've been dipping into, but I'm sure both are good. But, I mean, it's the Don, so. Anyway, I'm just sort of borrowing structure from him there. But, let's dive in. Chapter 6, what do you think? Are we going to read these?
Why don't we read 3?
3.
How many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5.
Okay. Well, let's read the first one since it's short.
Okay.
On giving.
Okay. Matthew 6, 1 to 4. Beware of practicing your righteousness before other people in order to be seen by them. For then you will have no reward from your Father who is in heaven. Thus, when you give to the needy, sound no trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may be praised by others. Truly, I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what the right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you.
Okay. So obviously the bigger picture here is pushing back against hypocrisy as well as like just doing things so that people think highly of you.
Yeah.
The motivations for giving here.
So I once heard Jonathan Pennington give a sermon on these passages, and he initially said doing things for the pleasing of men, and he said POM. He goes, I try to make it inclusive with the pleasing of others, but that's spelled POO. Yeah. And he goes, that's not as helpful.
No.
Anyway, wanted to get that story in.
Okay. So here's my question, because this is right in your wheelhouse in your current role at Grace.
This is.
You deal on a daily basis trying to encourage people to give generously to our institution and to our mission here. So when Jesus says, basically he's saying, or how do you understand him? What he's saying here in terms of only giving in secret. Basically not letting your left hand know what your right hand is doing.
Yeah. Basically giving because you have a generous heart instead of giving for the recognition that can come with giving.
Okay.
So even in our world today, there's a good amount of giving that can be done in order to get recognition.
Sure.
Name on a building, and not that those things are always bad. If anybody would like to put a name on a building here at Grace, contact me.
Yes.
But we've had some donors historically at Grace that have said, here's the money for that building, put my name on it, but not until I pass away. Or, we have always had a give anonymous button on our website, and so do most not-for-profits.
Yeah.
And I think this passage directly impacts some of those things. It's best practice to put up some piece of artwork that displays the name of your givers. And we have a lot of people opt out for those sorts of things. They don't want their name put out in public that they've given. And I think that's directly related to this passage.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I can think of, for example, when you walk through the tunnel entrance into the MOCC, our basketball arena. There's a display there of a chunk of the old hardwood court from Lancer Gym, the predecessor to our current basketball arena. And there's a whole list of names on there of people. It's sort of like and at different levels. Now, they don't say the amount, but there's clearly a sort of
clearly a hierarchy.
A hierarchy there of like these people gave at this level and then that level. Yeah. So
it's one in the Science Center too.
Yeah.
Alpha Dining. If you walk into Alpha Dining through the main doors, we're really getting in the weeds of Grace's campus now. But there's a piece of artwork on the wall. You can go look at names on the wall.
So I'm assuming you don't think that that's automatically a violation of what Jesus says here in Matthew 6.
No, I think there's a difference between the giver giving it and blowing their own trumpet, so to speak, as this passage uses, and the institution saying, we're so grateful for this gift that we want to honor. I think those are different things.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I do think it gets down to heart-level motivation and why are you giving? And if you're giving in a way that you want to draw attention to yourself, then that's not the kind of motivation Jesus calls for here, right? He says, "I say to you, they have received their reward." Like that's what you get. You get the faint praise of men, rather than any sort of eternal reward out of that. So. All right, next section, verses 5 through 15. That is the Lord's Prayer. And we won't read this one, I don't think.
Just because it's so well known?
Yeah.
Okay.
Though, I mean, at the beginning, before he gets to the Lord's Prayer, again, he's harping on this issue of parading your righteousness, in essence, before other people. So people praying these long, elaborate prayers in public to be noticed.
Yeah.
Right?
I had a teacher in high school who would pray prayers in Old English. And I think of this anytime I think of him, I think of this passage.
You mean like King James level type of language?
Yeah. You see, a lot of these, a lot of thous. And then he didn't talk like that the rest of the time.
Okay. And
it just felt.
Did he read or teach out of the King James Version?
He might have. Okay. Yeah. He might have. I'm trying to remember, but I think about that when I think of this passage. Like, man, you prayed a long time, and it was like spinning a yarn, man.
Spinning a yarn. There you go. So Jesus forbids that, and then he also in verse 7, when you pray, do not heap up empty phrases as the Gentiles do, for they think that they will be heard for their many words. I think we've all probably heard people. And I want to be cautious about judging motives.
Yeah, you want to be generous. Yeah.
But there are some people where you feel like they are praying and just heaping upon phrase upon words where you're just like, are you doing this to sound spiritual? Or you're even using specific, like certain theological language, or just things where you're like, is the real audience the people in the room here? Or are you talking to God? Like, what's the deal here? I think we've all been in those kind of circumstances.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. But obviously, the Lord's Prayer, arguably the most well-known section of the Sermon on the Mount. What stands out to you within those lines of the Lord's Prayer?
My goodness. What stands out? Well, I know what always gets pointed out is that sort of the asking for things, the give us this day our daily bread, comes like halfway through, like it's almost in the back half of the prayer. So it's a prayer first most focused on God, His kingdom, His provision for us, before getting to the I need this.
Yeah. I think here's an excellent example of how English translations today retain a word that almost nobody uses or knows just because of the familiarity of this passage.
Hallowed.
Hallowed. I mean, almost nobody uses it, unless they're a Harry Potter person and they know the Deathly Hallows.
The Deathly Hallows, yeah.
But, I think like I've seen numerous kids think it's hallowed, and then they're confused. Hallowed be your name? Like, why do we want God's name to be hollow, as in like empty?
They would probably know Halloween as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that it's completely foreign, but the idea – I mean, how many people do you think, even just in the random sample of ordinary evangelical churches, how many could explain what hallowed be your name actually means?
Probably less than 20%.
Okay. Yeah. I think
Is
I
that
might go a little higher, up to a third.
Okay. Well, we're in the ballpark.
But I mean, the idea of may your name be regarded as holy, as distinct, as set apart. And of course, it's not just God's name, but His name is a representation of who He is. And so it starts off with an interesting dynamic of you start by calling God Father, which communicates a level of relationship and intimacy. And yet there's the transcendence that comes in the very next line, hallowed be your name. May your name be regarded as holy and other, and may you be regarded as transcendent. So there's both these sort of immanence and transcendence of God in those two lines right there.
How do you take the last line of this? There's some interpretive decisions that get made when dealing with the Greek. So verse 13, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. That's what the ESV says.
I think most English translations go with that.
However, I think there's a parallel possibility, evil one, which is something different.
Yeah.
How do you wrestle with that?
I would I'm actually inclined. I would lean, and we're talking like 51-49 here. I would lean towards evil one, actually.
Really? What leads you to that conclusion?
Because the previous line talks about temptation.
Okay, and you're thinking that goes back to like Jesus' temptation there?
Well, maybe, but I mean, just in general. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. I just think that, to me, makes good sense of both the Greek and the context. I don't know that, not a massive theological point here.
It's a 51-49.
Yeah. And honestly, I think both, we need God to deliver us from both the evil one and the effects of evil that we experience living in this fallen world. So, but yeah, it's just it's a remarkably simple but profound prayer. Starting off with God's character, praying for God's kingdom to be fully realized, as well as you can't pray that in all honesty, and then just choose to live your own way. Like, you can't pray, your kingdom come, your will be done, and then be consistent and live a life that is completely at odds with what God's will actually is. So, tons we could do there. In fact, do you remember, were you at CCC when we were going through Luke? So maybe you weren't there.
I wasn't there. No. This was before my time.
When we got to the Lord's Prayer in Luke 11, we did a sermon on each line of the Lord's Prayer. And so mine was actually, I did your kingdom come.
That's not big at all.
No, not at all. Next section. Let's read this one.
Okay.
Verses 16 through 18 on fasting.
Okay. And when you fast, do not look gloomy like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces, that their fasting may be seen by others. Truly, I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, that your fasting may not be seen by others, but by your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you.
So, fasting was a pretty standard Jewish staple of piety. Why do you think this is almost never practiced in the church? I mean, it's rare.
That's a good question. I don't know. I know this is something I've thought about from time to time, but I've never stepped into practicing.
Yeah.
Have you ever fasted?
When I was a college student. Yeah.
Yeah. How was that experience for you?
It's good. It's good. I mean, when it's done right, I think fasting is a way of depriving yourself of something, in this case, food in particular, but of a necessity of life, as a way of facilitating your desire for an intimacy with God. And that it also can have the benefit of building and reinforcing other sort of fruits of the Spirit like self-control and discipline and those kinds of things. So, yeah, I remember I think my first exposure to this indirectly was, and I don't know if there were Catholics growing up where you grew up. I mean, I know you grew up in multiple locations.
When I was in Pittsburgh, there was a good number of Catholics.
But was there the Catholics don't eat meat on Fridays, but they could eat fish kind of thing? Were you familiar with that?
The fish fries in Pittsburgh are legendary.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they're great.
I mean, I guess that's a form of fasting that you're restricting yourself from eating meat. But the idea here, again, is not – I mean, it's – Jesus is concerned about fasting, but he's framing it again against if you're going to do it, don't do it in a way that makes it obvious.
Yeah.
Because then you're getting your reward again. You're practicing your righteousness before people so that the goal of drawing closer to God, being intimate with God through the tool of fasting is undercut by trumpeting the fact that you're fasting.
Yeah.
So
it kind of – this is going to be a stretch.
Okay.
Recently on social media, there's been a lot of people making fun of vegans because all they can do is talk about being vegan. It's kind of like that, right?
So all three of our vegan listeners can send their hate mail to you.
You think we have 3 vegan listeners?
I don't know.
That might be the most astonishing claim today on the pod.
I don't know.
But yeah, I saw a headline and it said, "Woman climbs Everest to prove that being vegan doesn't make you weak. Dies 46 or whatever it was."
Yeah.
And the comment from social media was, "At least she died doing what she loved."
Yeah.
Talking about being vegan. And
there you go.
Similar idea going on here.
Yeah. Let's see here. We need to move forward on that lovely note to laying up treasures in
For
heaven.
new listeners, that's what Matt says when he thinks John has said something silly.
Yeah, let's go ahead and read this one. This will be our last one we'll read. Then we'll.
Okay. 19 to, what do we got there, 24?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body, so if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body is full of darkness. And, if then the light is in you, is dark. If then the light in you is darkness, how great is the darkness? No one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money.
All right. Yeah, so again, there's the shift here from a this world focus to an eternal focus in terms of treasure in heaven. Now, this is certainly something that I think that can be misunderstood in the sense of like there can still be a very sort of selfish, okay, I'm going to do things to earn rewards from God, just like I would try to earn rewards here in this life. There can be a selfish motivation to that I think is ungodly. But Jesus' larger point is, I think, having that eternal perspective that when there is a conflict between pursuing earthly treasure and heavenly treasure, that there should be no conflict ultimately, that the decision should be pretty straightforward. And then that verse 24, no one can serve two masters. I think there are plenty of people who think they actually can, that they orient their daily lives towards the accumulation of earthly treasures, but then throw in some spiritual stuff thinking they're trying to accumulate heavenly treasures and thinking that they really can. Like the whole like, well, you can really have it all. You can pursue your own sort of self-oriented earthly agenda, pursue wealth or success or whatever it might be. And go to church and give some money to the church and help support some good causes there. And I just think that that's a very misguided understanding of what Jesus is. Or it's directly contradicted by what Jesus says here. Even just that end, you cannot serve God and money. That term mammon really is the idea of wealth. So it's not even just specifically money. It's possessions. It's stuff. It's wealth. It's things that we can easily put our trust in. It is striking how much Jesus talks about money. When you start to read through the Gospels and start paying attention to that, it's pretty striking how often he talks about money and treasure, and that it's a heart level issue. It's not as simple as just, every rich person should give all of their money away. It's not that simple. He does call the rich young ruler to do that because it was at the heart of what was keeping him away from following Christ. But there's a far more complex picture that emerges.
Oh, yeah.
So,
absolutely.
All right, last section here on anxiety, and basically not being anxious about what you'll wear, where your resources will come from, all of that. And he kind of concludes that by saying in verse 33, 33, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. So there's a recognition there that the Lord knows that you have basic needs. I mean, that's even going back to the Lord's Prayer, right? Give us this day our daily bread. Like, it is right for us to pray for basic needs to be met. Absolutely. But again, he's speaking to priorities here, right? He's speaking about our ultimate priority being the pursuit of God's kingdom, the advancement of that, and not our own comfort, or even just to be so consumed with the things of this world that we can't devote time and energy and resources to pursuing the advance of his kingdom.
But you would not say like, this is Jesus saying we shouldn't save money, or we shouldn't save for retirement, or any of those sorts of things either, right? Your priority, your desires need to be oriented toward God and his kingdom first and foremost.
Yeah, and again, this is where a holistic perspective on what the Bible says about money and possessions and priorities, the holistic perspective needs to be brought to bear.
Yeah.
So yes, I think that At the end of the day, though, if push comes to shove, it's kingdom of God first, obviously.
Absolutely.
Over any other earthly priorities. So, man, so much in there. Feels like we're just skimming.
Yeah.
Which is what we are actually doing.
We are actually skimming.
Yeah.
Shall we?
Yeah, next week, Chapter 7. We'll finish it out. And then we'll be done with our series on the Sermon on the Mount.
Awesome.
Time now for This Day in Sports History.
This Day in Sports History, July the 16th, 2024.
Halfway through July already.
I know. That's pretty insane. Student leaders come back to campus soon. Did you realize that?
No.
Maybe it's – I can't remember. I think they might be first week of August.
I mean, everything in the Harmon household is kind of oriented towards July 27th these days.
Yeah, 12 days. 11 when this drops.
When this drops, yeah. 12 days from my birthday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. My birthday is the day after the wedding.
Okay. My goodness. They better never forget your birthday.
And I'd better never forget their anniversary.
That's right. 1909, Detroit Tigers and the Washington Senators play the longest scoreless game in AL history, 18 innings at Bennett Field in Detroit, Michigan.
Now, I'm assuming that they just had to call it because of darkness.
Yeah, I'd assume so. 1909.
I mean, we don't really do ties in baseball.
No. 1950 FIFA World Cup final. Estadio da Maracana?
I think Kanya.
Kanya?
Maracana. I think that the accent mark over the A there gives it a ya.
Yeah. Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. I knew Rio de Janeiro and Brazil. Alcides Gigiga? I have no idea. Scores in the 79th minute as Uruguay beats Brazil 2-1.
Yeah.
All right. Let's hope that was the only pronunciation problem we had this time.
We'll see.
That means no. 1969 Minnesota Twins Rod Carew, I got that one, steals home for his career best 7th time of the season against Chicago. I assume the White Sox.
Do people steal home anymore in baseball?
Yes, it's happened a few times this year.
Okay.
There's some good young players that just fly on the base pass. I think Ellie De La Cruz, if you've seen him, shortstop for the Reds. Fun young talent. 1998, Jackie Joyner Kersey sets women's heptathlete record of 7,215 points.
Yeah, the heptathlon.
The heptathlon. Okay.
Well, that's the event. So she by competing in it, she's
a heptathlete.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
So 7 events in that.
Yeah, I figured that one. I knew that, just not how to pronounce it. 2017 Wimbledon men's tennis, Roger Federer beats Marin Cilic, gosh, for a record 8th Wimbledon men's title. Mm-hmm. And 2023, just a short year ago, Wimbledon in a classic final, 20-year-old Spaniard Carlos Alcaraz. Alcaraz. You said it earlier. Mm-hmm. I wanted to call it Alcatraz. Ends Djokovic's 34-match win streak at the All England Club with the win.
Yeah. All right. Who do you like?
Well, not you after choosing all these names. I kind of like Rod Carew.
Yeah, because you can pronounce his name.
I can pronounce his name. Stealing home's impressive.
Okay. All right, I can be talked into that. I was leaning towards Alcaraz, but
in 2023?
Well, I mean, he did it back to back again.
I guess he just did it over the weekend, didn't he?
Yeah.
Up to you.
Let's go Alcaraz.
Alcaraz.
There it is. one thing you liked.
All right. So this last week, I spent time at Charis Conference, talking to pastors there, talking about Grace College, getting feedback's too strong of a word, but just trying to get a temperature on how people feel about the college, engage with the college. Fascinating conversations.
Okay, very good. I believe you also had breakfast with
Nate in
Ohio.
I did.
Yeah. I'm going to go with this past weekend. Our church did one of their events called Donuts and Discs.
Oh, did you go?
I did. Kate and I went. Yes. So basically, it's disc golfing. They bring out some donuts at the beginning of the course, and we sort of stand around, eat donuts, and chat, and then go off onto the course. And
was it here?
It was here on campus.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, they just put in a new disc golf course in Leesburg.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. I was.
Oh, is that at the church there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's a 6-hole course from what I understand.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was that much smaller.
There you go. So a lot of fun. Good to connect with some people in our church.
Nice.
So that is my one thing I liked. All right, John, we have talked some soccer, some Wimbledon, some Mets, some All-Star break. We have talked about the Sermon on the Mount, Part 3, Chapter 6, giving, praying, fasting, treasures in heaven, anxiety. We have talked about Carlos Alcaraz beating Novak Djokovic 2 years in a row. We've talked about the Charis Conference, and we've talked about donuts and discs. So I think, by definition, we have covered our various and sundry topics. So all that's left to say is, until next time, the Lord bless you all real good.
Later.